Martha Johnson walked down the clean white hall of City Hospital. Her blue nurse shoes made no sound on the floor. She had worked at this hospital for 5 years now. Martha liked helping sick people get better. But today was different. Today, she felt like she could not breathe. She looked down at the paper in her hand. Room 302. Patient name, Robert Wilson. Age, 42. Problem, late-stage cancer. Not much time left to live. Martha knew that name. She knew that man. How could she ever forget him? 10 years ago, her son Timmy was only 7 years old. He was a happy boy with bright eyes and a big smile. He loved to play with toy cars and catch bugs in the yard. Timmy was her only child. Martha had raised him alone since his father left when Timmy was just 2. Martha had to work 2 jobs to pay for their small home. She worked at a store in the day and cleaned offices at night. This meant she sometimes had to ask her neighbor, Mrs. Clark, to watch Timmy after school. Mrs. Clark was nice and old. She baked cookies for Timmy and let him watch TV. But Mrs. Clark also had her nephew staying with her that summer. His name was Robert Wilson. Robert was a big man with angry eyes. He drank too much beer and yelled a lot. Martha did not like him, but she had no choice. She needed to work. Then came the worst day of Martha's life. She was at the store when her phone rang. It was the police. There had been an accident, they said. She needed to come to the hospital right away. But it was not an accident. When Martha got to the hospital, Timmy was already gone. The doctor said he had many broken bones and hurt places inside his body. Someone had hit him very hard, many times. The police asked many questions. Soon they found out that Robert had been watching Timmy alone that day. Mrs. Clark had gone to the store. Robert said Timmy had fallen down the stairs, but the doctors said that was not true. There was a trial. Martha sat in the courtroom every day. She looked at Robert, trying to understand how someone could hurt a small boy so badly. Robert did not look at her. He looked at the floor. The police found out that Robert had been angry because Timmy broke his phone. Robert hit Timmy again and again. He did not stop, even when Timmy cried. The judge sent Robert to jail for 15 years. But now, 10 years later, here he was in her hospital. Martha had changed in those 10 years. Her hair was a different color. She was thinner. She had a new last name. And she was a nurse now, not a store worker. Robert would not know who she was. He had never really looked at her face during the trial. But she knew him. She would always know the face of the man who took her son away. Martha stopped outside room 302. In her hand was a syringe full of medicine for pain. As a nurse, her job was to help all patients, even the bad ones, even the ones who had done terrible things. She took a deep breath and put her hand on the door. In a moment, she would see him, the man who killed her son, and no one in the hospital knew their connection. No one knew she was the mother of the little boy Robert had beaten to death. What would she do now? Martha pushed open the door to room 302. Her heart beat fast in her chest. The room was dim with just one small light on next to the bed. There lay Robert Wilson. He was much thinner now. His face was pale, and his cheeks were hollow. The strong man who had once hurt her son was now weak and sick. Robert turned his head slowly when he heard the door open. His eyes were dull with pain. He did not seem to know who Martha was. He just saw a nurse in a blue uniform. "Time for your pain medicine," Martha said. Her voice sounded normal, but her hands shook a little. She gripped the syringe tighter. "Thank you," Robert said in a weak voice. "The pain is very bad today." Martha walked to his bedside. She looked at the bag of liquid that dripped into the tube in his arm. She needed to put the medicine in there. It was her job. She had done this hundreds of times for other patients. But this was not just any patient. This was the man who took away her only child. This was the man who stole all her joy. Because of him, she had cried every night for years. Because of him, she would never see Timmy grow up or go to school or get married. Martha looked at the syringe in her hand. It would be so easy. Just a little more medicine than what the doctor said. No one would know. Cancer patients died every day. No one would question it. Robert closed his eyes and breathed in and out slowly. He seemed to be in great pain. "I deserve this," he said suddenly. "This pain. This slow dying. I deserve worse." Martha paused. "Why do you say that?" she asked. Robert kept his eyes closed. "I did something bad. Something very bad many years ago. I hurt someone who could not fight back. A child." Martha felt her whole body go cold. He was talking about Timmy. Her Timmy. "I was drunk," Robert went on. "I was always drunk back then. But that is no excuse. There is no excuse for what I did." A tear slid down his thin face. "I think about that boy every day. I see his face in my dreams. I went to jail, but that was not enough. Nothing will ever be enough to make up for what I did." Martha stood very still. The syringe was still in her hand. Her job was to help him feel less pain. That was what nurses did. But right now, a part of her wanted him to feel pain. A part of her thought he should hurt just like Timmy had hurt. "Do you think," Robert said, opening his eyes to look at the ceiling, "do you think his mother will ever forgive me? Do you think God will?" Martha did not answer. How could she? She was that mother. She had hoped for this moment for years. In her dreams, she had seen herself facing this man and making him sorry for what he did to her son. But now that the moment was here, she felt strange. The hate was still there in her heart, but there was something else too. Something she did not expect. She looked at Robert Wilson, dying in that hospital bed. He was not the same angry, drunk man who had killed her son. He was broken. He was sorry. He was dying with the weight of what he had done. Martha had a choice to make. She could tell him who she was. She could let him die in fear, knowing that Timmy's mother was the one giving him medicine. Or she could keep her secret. She could be the nurse who helped ease his pain as he died. And there was a third choice too, one that made her heart beat even faster. Martha looked at the syringe in her hand. She took a deep breath and put the right amount of medicine in the tube that went into Robert's arm. Not too much, not too little, just what the doctor ordered. "This will help with the pain," she said. "Give it a few minutes to work." Robert nodded weakly. "Thank you. You are kind." He looked at her name tag. "Martha. That is a nice name." Martha checked the machines that showed Robert's heart rate and blood pressure. She wrote the numbers on his chart. She was doing her job like she would for any other patient. But inside, her mind was racing. What should she do? Should she tell him who she was? Should she make him face her, the mother of the boy he killed? Or should she keep her secret? "I have a question," Robert said after a moment. The medicine was starting to work. His face looked less tight with pain. "You are a nurse. You help people. You have seen many people die." "Yes," Martha said. "That is true." "Do you think that people can change? Really change?" Robert asked. His voice was low and tired. "Or are we always the same person inside, no matter what?" Martha thought about this. She had changed in the 10 years since Timmy died. She was not the same woman who sat crying in that courtroom. She had gone back to school. She had become a nurse. She had built a new life. "I think people can change," she said slowly. "But I think the past is still there. We can grow and be better, but we cannot erase what we did." Robert nodded. "Yes, that sounds right. I cannot erase what I did." He closed his eyes for a moment. "I wrote letters. Many letters. To the boy's mother. I never sent them. I did not know her address. And what good would they do? Words cannot bring back her son." Martha felt her heart jump. Letters. To her. "What did the letters say?" she asked. Her mouth felt dry. "That I was sorry. That I would take it back if I could. That I was not asking for forgiveness because I did not deserve it." Robert turned his face to look at Martha. I wanted her to know that I think about her son every day, that I see him in my dreams, that I never forgot what I did." Martha had to turn away for a moment. She pretended to check something on the wall chart. She did not want Robert to see the tears in her eyes. For 10 years, she had pictured Robert as a monster. She had thought of him living in jail, angry and mean, just waiting to get out and hurt someone else. She had never thought he might be sorry. She had never thought he might think of Timmy, might regret what he did. "What was his name?" Martha asked. She needed to hear him say it. "The boy you hurt." Robert's eyes filled with tears. "Timothy," but everyone called him Timmy. He was 7 years old. He liked toy cars and the color blue. Martha caught her breath. He remembered. He knew these things about her son. His mother's name was Martha too, Robert went on. "Like you. She had blonde hair then. She was a good mother. She worked hard for her boy." Martha turned back to face him. Her hands were shaking. This was the moment. She could tell him. She could see the shock on his face when he realized who she was. But something held her back. Not fear. Not even hate anymore. Something else. "I need to go check on my other patients," she said. "I will be back in a few hours with more medicine. Try to rest." As she walked to the door, Robert spoke again. "Nurse Martha," he said softly, "do you believe in forgiveness?" Martha paused with her hand on the doorknob. Did she? After all these years, could she forgive this man? "I think," she said carefully, "that forgiveness is a journey, not something that happens all at once." She left the room and closed the door behind her. Her legs felt weak. She leaned against the wall in the hallway and took deep breaths. She had 3 more days of work before her day off. 3 more days of being Robert Wilson's nurse. 3 more days to decide what to do. The next morning, Martha came back to work. She had not slept well. She kept thinking about Robert and what he had said. She kept thinking about Timmy. When she got to the hospital, she went to check on her other patients first. She did not want to see Robert right away. She needed time to think. But soon it was time to bring him his morning medicine. Martha took a deep breath and walked into room 302. Robert looked worse today. His skin was more yellow. His breathing was not good. The cancer was eating him up inside. The doctor had told Martha that Robert did not have much time left. Maybe a week. Maybe less. "Good morning," Martha said. She tried to keep her voice normal. Robert opened his eyes slowly. "Good morning, Nurse Martha." His voice was weak. "I had a dream about him last night. About Timmy." Martha froze. She had a cup of water in her hand. She almost dropped it. "What was the dream?" she asked. She did not know why she wanted to know, but she did. "We were in a park. He was playing. I was watching him. He was happy." Robert's eyes filled with tears. It was not a memory. Nothing like that ever happened. But in the dream, I was not the man who hurt him. I was someone who kept him safe. Martha put the cup of water on the table next to the bed. She checked Robert's IV line. She wrote down his numbers from the machines. "I never had children of my own," Robert said. "I was too angry, too drunk. No woman would stay with me long enough. But sometimes I think about what it would have been like to be a father, to love a child, and keep them safe." Martha felt a pain in her chest. This was so hard, harder than she ever thought it would be. "Did you have children?" Robert asked her. "Do you know what it is like?" Martha could not lie. "Not about Timmy." "Yes. I had a son." "Had." Robert looked at her. "He died. A long time ago." Martha's voice was tight. "I am sorry," Robert said. His eyes were full of real sadness. "That is the worst thing that can happen to a parent, to lose a child." Martha nodded. She could not speak. "How do you go on?" Robert asked. "After something like that?" Martha looked at him for a long time. This was a real question. He really wanted to know. "You just do," she said finally. One day at a time. You find things that matter. You try to help others. You try to make some good in the world. Like being a nurse, Robert said. You help people who are sick and dying. Even people who do not deserve help. People like me. Martha gave Robert his morning medicine. Then she checked his bandages where the doctors had done a surgery that did not help. The cancer was too far along. Everyone deserves help, she said. She was surprised to find that she meant it. Everyone deserves care at the end. Robert looked at her with tired eyes. You are a good person, Nurse Martha. Better than me. Martha finished her work in the room. As she was about to leave, Robert spoke again. Will you be here? He asked. When it is time. I do not want to die alone. Martha looked back at him. She thought of all the patients she had watched die. Some with family around them. Some all alone. She had held many hands in those last moments. Could she hold Robert's hand when his time came? Could she sit with the man who took her son's life as his own life ended? We will see, she said. Try to rest now. As she left the room, Martha's mind was a storm of feelings. Hate and anger were still there. But so was something new, something that felt almost like pity. Robert was dying filled with regret and sorrow. That was its own kind of punishment. Martha went to the break room and sat down. She took out her phone and looked at a picture of Timmy. His sweet smile, his bright eyes. What should I do, baby? She whispered to the picture. What is the right thing here? There was no answer. But as she looked at Timmy's face, she felt a strange sense of calm come over her. She knew what she needed to do next. Martha went to the hospital office. She asked to speak to her boss, Susan. Susan was the head nurse. She was kind and fair. Martha had worked with her for 5 years. I need to talk to you about a patient, Martha said when they were alone in Susan's small office. Robert Wilson in room 302. Susan looked at her papers. The cancer patient. Very bad case. Not much time left. Yes, Martha said. Her heart was beating fast. I need to tell you something about him. And about me. Martha took a deep breath. Then she told Susan everything. About Timmy. About the trial. About how Robert Wilson was the man who killed her son 10 years ago. Susan's eyes grew wide as she listened. When Martha finished talking, Susan was quiet for a long time. Why did you not tell me this yesterday? Susan asked finally. When you first saw him. I was in shock, Martha said. I could not believe he was here. And then, I wanted to see him. I wanted to face him. Susan nodded slowly. And now? Now I think I should not be his nurse anymore, Martha said. It is not right. It is not fair to him or to me. I agree, Susan said. I will move you to the other floor. Jane can take over his care. She reached out and touched Martha's hand. I am sorry, Martha. This must be very hard for you. Martha felt tears come to her eyes. It is hard, but not in the way I thought it would be. Martha went back to check on her other patients. She tried not to think about Robert. She tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept going back to room 302. At lunchtime, Martha went to the hospital garden. She sat on a bench under a tree. She took out her phone again and looked at pictures of Timmy. There he was playing in the snow. There he was on his bike. There he was blowing out candles on his last birthday cake. After Timmy died, Martha had been so angry. She had wanted Robert to suffer. She had wanted him to die in jail. But now that she had seen him, now that she had talked to him, she felt different. Robert was suffering. He was dying full of regret. He thought about Timmy every day. He saw him in his dreams. Was that not punishment enough? Martha put her phone away and went back inside. She had made up her mind. She went to Susan's office again. I changed my mind, she said. I want to stay as Robert Wilson's nurse. Susan looked surprised. Are you sure? No one would blame you for not wanting to care for him. I am sure, Martha said. I need to do this. Susan studied her face. This is not about making him suffer, is it? Because that would go against everything we stand for as nurses. No, Martha said. It is not about making him suffer. It is about finding peace for both of us. Susan nodded slowly. Okay, if you are sure. But you can change your mind any time. Just let me know. Martha went back to work. When it was time for Robert's afternoon medicine, she went to room 302 again. He was awake, looking out the window. He seemed surprised to see her. I thought they might send a different nurse, he said. Why? Martha asked, checking his IV line. I saw your face when I talked about Timmy this morning, Robert said. It upset you. I am sorry. Martha was quiet as she gave him his medicine. Then she sat down in the chair next to his bed. This was not something she usually did with patients, but this was not a usual situation. Robert, she said, I need to ask you something. Those letters you wrote to Timmy's mother, do you still have them? Robert looked surprised. Yes, they are in my room at my brother's house, in a box under the bed. I never sent them. Why not? Martha asked. Robert looked out the window again. What right do I have to ask for her forgiveness? What right do I have to make her think about me, about what I did? It would be selfish. Martha thought about this. Was it selfish? Would she want to read those letters? Maybe it would help her, Martha said. To know that you are sorry. To know that you think about her son. Robert turned back to look at her. Do you really think so? Martha nodded. I do. Robert was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I could ask my brother to bring them. He is coming to visit tomorrow. That would be good, Martha said. She stood up to leave. Why are you being so kind to me? Robert asked suddenly. After what I told you I did. Martha looked at him for a long time. Because kindness is a choice, she said finally. And I choose to be kind, even when it is hard. As she left the room, Martha felt lighter somehow. She was not sure what she would do with Robert's letters when she got them. She was not sure if she would tell him who she really was. But she knew that something was changing inside her. The hard knot of hate that had lived in her heart for 10 years was starting to loosen. The next day was hard for Robert. The pain was worse. The medicine did not seem to help as much. Martha had to call the doctor to get permission to give him more. It will not be long now, the doctor told Martha quietly outside Robert's room. Maybe 2 or 3 days. Make sure he is comfortable. Martha nodded. She had seen many patients die. She knew the signs. Robert's breathing was getting more shallow. His skin was turning a gray color. His body was shutting down. When Martha went into the room, Robert was awake but very weak. My brother is coming today, he said. His voice was just a whisper now. He will bring the letters. Good, Martha said. She checked his tubes and wires. She gave him his medicine. Try to rest until he comes. Robert closed his eyes. Will you sit with me, just for a little while? I do not want to be alone. Martha looked at her watch. She had other patients to check on, but they could wait a few minutes. She sat down in the chair next to Robert's bed. The room was quiet except for the beep of the machines and Robert's raspy breathing. Tell me about your son, Robert said without opening his eyes. The one who died. Martha felt her heart skip. This was dangerous ground. But something made her want to talk about Timmy. Robert would never know that she was talking about the same boy he had killed. He was a good boy, she said. Smart. Funny. He loved bugs and frogs. He would bring them home in his pockets. Robert smiled a little. Like Timmy. He loved bugs too. Martha took a deep breath. Yes. Like Timmy. What was your son's name? Robert asked. Martha paused. Timothy, she said. It was not a lie. Robert opened his eyes and looked at her. That is strange. The same name. Martha nodded. It is a common name. Robert was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, how did he die? Your Timothy. Martha looked out the window. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day outside. Someone hurt him, she said. Someone who was angry and drunk. Robert was very still. Like me, he whispered. Like what I did to Timmy. Martha did not answer. Her heart was pounding. Had she said too much? I am so sorry, Robert said. His voice was full of pain. For your loss. And for what I did. I wish I could take it back. I wish I could trade places with Timmy. A tear slid down Martha's cheek. She wiped it away quickly. I should go check on my other patients, she said, standing up. I will be back later. As she reached the door, Robert spoke again. Nurse Martha, do you think Timmy's mother could ever forgive me? Do you think anyone could ever forgive something like that? Martha stopped with her hand on the doorknob. Without turning around, she said, I do not know. Forgiveness is hard. Maybe the hardest thing in the world. She left the room and went to the nurse's station. She sat down and put her head in her hands. This was becoming too much. She had thought she could handle it. But talking about Timmy with Robert was tearing her heart open again. Maybe Susan was right. Maybe she should let Jane take over Robert's care. Just then, the desk phone rang. It was the front desk. There is a visitor here for Robert Wilson, the receptionist said. His brother, Michael Wilson. I will come get him, Martha said. She went down to the lobby. A tall man with graying hair was waiting there. He looked a little like Robert, but healthier, stronger. Mr. Wilson, Martha asked. I am Nurse Martha. I am taking care of your brother. Michael Wilson shook her hand. How is he? Not good, Martha said honestly. The doctor thinks it will be soon. Days, not weeks. Michael nodded sadly. I brought what he asked for. He held up a shoebox. Letters he wrote in prison. Martha looked at the box. There were her answers. The words Robert had written to her over the years. He said his nurse would explain, Michael went on. Something about the mother of a boy named Timmy. Do you know what he means? Martha swallowed hard. This was the moment. She could tell the truth. She could say, I am Timmy's mother. She could watch the shock on Michael's face. But what good would that do? What purpose would it serve? Robert hurt a little boy many years ago, she said instead. He went to jail for it. These are letters he wrote to the boy's mother to say he was sorry. He never sent them. Michael looked sad. My brother did a terrible thing. He has paid for it every day since. He was drunk, out of control. But he changed in prison. He is not the same man now. Martha nodded. I can see that. You have been kind to him, Michael said. Thank you. Not everyone would be so kind to someone with his past. Martha led Michael up to Robert's room. When they went in, Robert was asleep. His breathing was worse. His face was twisted with pain. I will give him something to help with the pain, Martha said. She prepared a syringe and put the medicine in Robert's IV line. As the medicine went in, Robert's face relaxed. He opened his eyes and saw his brother. Mike, he said weakly, you came. Of course I came, Michael said, sitting down next to the bed. I brought what you asked for. He put the shoebox on the bed. Robert looked at Martha. Did you tell him? About the letters? Yes, Martha said. I told him. Will you take them? Robert asked her. Will you make sure they get to Timmy's mother? Martha felt like the room was spinning. Yes, she said. I will make sure she gets them. Robert closed his eyes again. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for everything, Nurse Martha. He beat her son to death years ago. Now she's the nurse holding the syringe at his bedside. Part 7. Martha took the shoebox and put it in her locker. She did not open it. Not yet. She was not ready. When her shift ended, she drove home with the box beside her on the car seat. Her hands shook as she carried it into her small house. She lived alone now. After Timmy died, she had moved to a new town. She needed a fresh start, a place where people did not look at her with sad eyes, a place where they did not whisper, "That is the woman whose son was killed." Martha made a cup of tea and sat at her kitchen table. The shoebox sat in front of her. She stared at it for a long time before she found the courage to open it. Inside were many envelopes, all addressed simply to Mrs. Johnson, mother of Timothy. There was no address, just the name. They were numbered, 1 through 52, one for each week of the first year after Timmy died. Martha picked up the first letter with shaking hands. She opened it carefully. "Dear Mrs. Johnson," it began. "You do not know me, but I am the man who took your son's life. My name is Robert Wilson." Martha read the letter slowly. Robert wrote about how sorry he was. He wrote about how he had been drunk and angry. He wrote about how he could not remember much of what happened, but he remembered Timmy's face. He remembered hitting him. He remembered Timmy crying. "I cannot ask for your forgiveness," the letter ended. "I do not deserve it. But I want you to know that I am sorry, more sorry than words can say." Martha put the letter down. Tears ran down her face. She picked up the second letter. In this one, Robert wrote about his life before, about his father who beat him, about how he started drinking when he was just 14, about how angry he was all the time. "This does not excuse what I did," he wrote. "Nothing can excuse that, but maybe it helps you understand how a person can become a monster." Martha read letter after letter. In some, Robert wrote about jail, about how hard it was, about the other men who hated him because he had hurt a child. In others, he wrote about the programs he was in, programs to help him stop drinking, programs to help him deal with his anger. "I am trying to change," he wrote in letter 20, "not to make up for what I did. Nothing can make up for that, but because I do not want to be that man anymore. I do not want to hurt anyone else." Martha read until her eyes burned. She read until the sun went down and the room grew dark. She read until she had gone through all 52 letters. The last one was different from the others. It was shorter. "Dear Mrs. Johnson," it said, "this is my last weekly letter. I will still write to you, but not every week. I have said all I can say about how sorry I am. Words are not enough. They never will be. But I want you to know that I think of Timmy every day. I pray for him. I pray for you. I hope that somehow, someday, you find peace." Martha put down the last letter. She wiped her tears. She felt empty and full at the same time. Empty of the hate that had filled her for so long. Full of something new. Something like understanding. Robert was not a monster. He was a broken man who had done a monstrous thing. A man who had been sorry every day since. A man who had tried to change. Martha went to bed that night but could not sleep. She kept thinking about the letters, about Robert lying in his hospital bed, dying alone except for his brother's visits. The next morning, Martha got up early. She had a day off, but she knew what she needed to do. She drove to the hospital. When she got there, she went straight to room 302. She nodded to Jane, the nurse who was caring for Robert while Martha was off duty. "How is he?" Martha asked. Jane shook her head. "Not good. The doctor says today or tomorrow. He is in and out of consciousness." Martha took a deep breath. "Can I sit with him for a while?" Jane looked surprised but nodded. "Of course. Call if you need anything." Martha went into the room. Robert was asleep. His breathing was very shallow now. His skin was gray. The end was near. Martha sat down in the chair next to his bed. She took his hand. It was cold. "Robert," she said softly. "It is Martha. Can you hear me?" Robert's eyes fluttered open. He looked confused. "Nurse Martha," he whispered. "You are not working today." "No," Martha said. "I came to see you, to talk to you." Robert looked at her with tired eyes. "About what?" Martha squeezed his hand. "I read your letters, Robert. All of them." Robert looked confused. "My letters?" "The ones you wrote to Timmy's mother," Martha said. "I read them last night." Robert's eyes widened a little. "You did? Will you give them to her?" Martha looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "She already has them, Robert. I am Timmy's mother. I am Martha Johnson." Robert's face went completely still. His eyes filled with shock, and then with tears. "No," he whispered. "It cannot be." "It is," Martha said. Her voice was steady now. "I changed my hair. I lost weight. I moved to a new town. I went back to school to become a nurse. But I am her. I am Timmy's mom. He beat her son to death years ago. Now she's the nurse holding the syringe at his bedside." Robert stared at Martha with wide eyes. Tears ran down his hollow cheeks. His lips moved, but no sound came out. "It is okay," Martha said. "You do not need to say anything." But Robert kept trying to speak. Martha leaned closer to hear him. "Did you know?" he whispered. "All along. Was this some kind of trick?" Martha shook her head. "No, I did not know you would be here. It was chance. Or fate. I do not know which. But when you saw me, why did you not tell someone? Why did you take care of me? Why did you give me medicine for pain?" Robert's voice was weak but full of confusion. Martha looked down at their hands, her warm living hand holding his cold dying one. "At first, I was in shock," she said. "I could not believe it was you. And then, I wanted to see you suffer." She looked up at his face. "I am not proud of that, but it is the truth." Robert nodded slightly. "I understand. I deserve to suffer." "Maybe," Martha said, "but that is not for me to decide." She was quiet for a moment. Then she went on. "After I talked to you, after I saw how sorry you were, how much you had changed, something changed in me too." Robert's eyes never left her face. "What changed?" Martha thought about it. "The hate," she said finally. "The hate was eating me up inside. For 10 years, I have lived with this ball of hate in my heart. It was like a poison." "I am sorry," Robert whispered. "So sorry." "I know," Martha said. "I know that now. Your letters helped me see it. You have been punishing yourself more than the law ever could." Robert closed his eyes. "I do not deserve your kindness." "Maybe not," Martha said. "But kindness is not about what people deserve. It is a gift we give each other. It is how we heal." They sat in silence for a while. Robert's breathing grew more labored. Martha checked his oxygen levels. They were dropping. "I need to call the doctor," she said, reaching for the call button. "No," Robert said. His voice was barely a whisper now. "It is time. I can feel it." Martha looked at the machines. Robert was right. The numbers were all going down. His body was shutting down. "Are you afraid?" she asked. Robert was quiet for so long that Martha thought he might have fallen asleep. Then he said, "Yes, but not of dying. I am afraid of what comes next, of facing what I did." Martha squeezed his hand. "You have faced it every day for 10 years, in your letters, in your dreams, in your heart." "But Timmy," Robert said. His voice broke. "What if I see him? What would I say?" Martha felt tears come to her eyes. "You would say you are sorry, and he would forgive you." "How do you know?" Robert asked. Martha smiled through her tears. "Because he was that kind of boy. He had a big heart. He forgave easily." Robert turned his face toward her. "And you? Can you forgive me, Martha?" This was the hardest question. The one Martha had been asking herself all night as she read the letters. The one she had been asking herself for 10 years. "I am trying," she said honestly. "I am not there yet, but I am trying." Robert nodded slightly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for being here, for telling me the truth, for trying." Martha saw that he was getting very tired. His eyes kept closing. "Rest now," she said. "I will stay with you." "Promise?" Robert asked. His voice was so faint now she could barely hear it. "I promise," Martha said. Robert closed his eyes. His breathing slowed even more. Martha watched the numbers on the machines drop lower and lower. In the quiet of the room, Martha thought about forgiveness, not just forgiving Robert, but forgiving herself, for all the years of hate, for all the time wasted on anger. She thought about what she had said to Robert before, about kindness being the gift we give each other, about it being how we heal. Maybe forgiveness was like that too, a gift we give others, but also ourselves, a way to heal. "I forgive you, Robert," Martha whispered. She did not know if he could hear her. She did not know if she fully meant it yet, but she knew she wanted to mean it. She knew she needed to say it, for both of them. Robert's hand twitched in hers. His eyes opened one last time. They were clear now, clearer than they had been for days. "Thank you," he said. The words were more breath than sound. Then his eyes closed again. His chest rose and fell one more time. The machines began to beep as his heart stopped beating. Martha sat there holding his hand for a long time. She did not call the nurses right away. She needed this moment, this quiet space between life and death. Finally, she pressed the call button. Jane came in quickly. "He is gone," Martha said simply. Jane checked the machines and nodded. She looked at Martha with concern. "Are you okay? You barely knew him, but you seem upset." Martha stood up slowly. She felt tired but also lighter somehow. "I knew him better than you think," she said. "And yes, I am okay. Or I will be." Martha left the hospital and drove home. She felt empty and full at the same time. Empty of the hate that had filled her for so long. Full of something else. Something that felt almost like peace. 1 week later, Martha stood in the small cemetery outside of town. It was a beautiful spring day. Birds sang in the trees. Flowers bloomed along the paths. Martha had not planned to come to Robert's funeral, but when Michael called to tell her about it, she found herself saying yes. There were not many people there, just Michael and his wife. An old woman who Martha learned was Robert's aunt, a few men who had known Robert in prison and had turned their lives around too. The priest said prayers. Michael said a few words about his brother, about how Robert had made terrible mistakes, but had worked hard to change, about how he had died full of regret, but also at peace. Martha stood quietly at the back of the small group. No one knew who she was. No one knew her connection to Robert. It was better that way. After the simple service was over, people began to leave. Michael saw Martha and came over to her. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Robert spoke highly of you. He said you were kind to him at the end." Martha nodded. "I am glad I could help. He said something strange to me the last time I saw him," Michael went on. "He said his nurse was an angel of mercy, that she had given him a gift he did not deserve." Martha felt tears come to her eyes. He was in a lot of pain. The medicine sometimes makes people say strange things. Michael nodded. "Maybe, but I think he meant it." After Michael left, Martha stayed by the fresh grave. The workers would come later to fill it in. For now, there was just a hole in the ground with a simple coffin at the bottom. Martha took a small stone from her pocket. It was smooth and round. Timmy had found it at the beach during their last vacation together. He had given it to her as a present. "It looks like a heart, Mom," he had said. Martha had kept it all these years. A small piece of Timmy's love, a reminder of the joy they had shared. She looked at the stone for a long time. Then she dropped it gently onto Robert's coffin. "Rest in peace," she whispered. Martha walked slowly back to her car. As she drove home, she thought about hate and love, about punishment and forgiveness, about how people can change, about how the hardest person to forgive is often yourself. When she got home, Martha went to the small table in her living room. On it was a picture of Timmy, his bright smile, his kind eyes. Next to the picture was the shoebox of letters. Martha had read them all again last night. This time, she had not cried. This time, she had felt something different, something like understanding. Martha picked up the picture of Timmy. "I did something hard today, baby," she said to the smiling face. "Something I never thought I could do." She put the picture back down and went to the window. Outside, the sun was shining. Spring flowers were blooming in her small garden. For 10 years, Martha had lived in winter, cold with hate, frozen with anger, going through the motions of living, but not really alive. Now she felt something new growing inside her, something warm and green. Not happiness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of peace. Martha opened the window and let the spring air fill her home. She took a deep breath. For the first time in 10 years, it did not hurt to breathe. She went to her desk and took out a notebook and pen. She began to write. "Dear Robert," she wrote, "you will never read this letter, but I need to write it anyway." Martha wrote about her anger, about her hate, about how his letters had helped her see him as a person, not just a monster, about how caring for him at the end had helped her start to heal. "I do not know if I have fully forgiven you," she wrote. "Forgiveness is a journey, not a moment. But I am on that journey now. For 10 years, I wanted you to suffer. Now I just want peace. For both of us." Martha finished the letter and put down her pen. She folded the paper and placed it in an envelope. She did not address it. There was no place to send it. Instead, she put it in the shoebox with all of Robert's letters. Then she put the box on the top shelf of her closet. She would not throw it away. But she did not need to look at it anymore. Martha made herself a cup of tea and sat on her small porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky pink and gold. In her garden, the first roses of spring were beginning to bloom. Her phone rang. It was Susan from the hospital. "How are you doing?" Susan asked. "We have been worried about you." "I am okay," Martha said. She was surprised to find that it was true. "Better than I have been in a long time." "Good," Susan said. "We miss you at work. Will you be coming back soon?" Martha looked at her garden, at the life growing there, at the beauty that had been there all along, waiting for her to notice. "Yes," she said. "I will be back tomorrow." After she hung up, Martha stayed on the porch until the stars came out. She thought about Timmy, about how much she still missed him, about how she would always miss him. But now the memories brought smiles as well as tears. She could remember his laugh, his jokes, the way he hugged her so tight when he was happy. And she thought about Robert, about how hate had nearly destroyed her, about how forgiveness had set her free. Martha stood up and went inside. Tomorrow she would go back to the hospital. She would care for her patients. She would ease their pain. She would hold their hands when they were afraid. And she would live, really live, not just go through the motions. "Good night, Timmy," she whispered as she turned off the lights. "I love you. I always will." As she closed her eyes that night, Martha felt something she had not felt in 10 years. Hope. Hope that the future held more than just pain and anger. Hope that she could find joy again. It would not be easy. The journey had just begun. But for the first time in a very long time, Martha Johnson was heading in the right direction. She was heading toward peace.